Backstory. My 48-year-old female husband, H, 46-year-old male, and his twin K, 46-year-old male, lost both their parents in the span of a year. Father-in-law, and mother-in-law were both lovely people, kind and generous. I, H, and K are all doctors. K's wife, my sister-in-law Sil, 46-year-old female, is a stay-at-home mom, SAHM. We have 2 kids each, us, 20-year-old male, 16-year-old female, them, 21-year-old female, 19-year-old male. Our parents-in-law were amazingly generous with us. Both the brothers went to medical school with no debt, they paid for a majority of our weddings, and funded our kids' 529 college savings accounts from the time they were born. K and M, their spouses, met in college and have been together since. Our parents-in-law have always loved her, and she seemed to love them too. I met H in medical school and have loved his parents from the get-go. When father-in-law turned 75 about 5 years ago, we decided to broach the topic of their care. Both H and K wanted them to move in with us or them. They are the most unproblematic people ever. We'd always wanted to have them with us. H and I even built a bedroom for them on the main floor of our home that was an exact replica of their bedroom, closets and all. We were happy to have them with us full-time, but assumed K would want them for some time too, given that they did a very similar thing. I'm not sure what happened, but about a week after this, M got a cat. Mother-in-law was severely allergic. She would get physically sick, like projectile vomiting sick, from extended exposure to cats and dogs over a couple of hours. It was seen by me, H, our kids, and the parents-in-law for what it was. K tried to convince them that they could still visit. They'd board the cat when they did. Parents-in-law finally moved in after a year or so, and we were thrilled. Those 3-4 years were the best for us as a family. They were still kind and generous, and our kids were so fortunate to have gotten to know them as almost adults. Mother-in-law passed in her sleep about 18 months ago, and father-in-law followed her barely a year after. The final will was read recently, and there were some surprises. While the majority of the estate was still divided among the 2 brothers and their 4 kids, there was a special inheritance only for me, nothing for M. But what angered her the most was that she received only 1 piece of jewelry from my MIL's rather substantial collection. Her kids also received a relatively smaller portion. Think about $10,000 worth for her, about $50,000, $60,000 for each of her kids, while my kids received over $100,000 worth each. I received a bit more than that. It looks like late father-in-law changed this part of the will after Mill's death. She would have never allowed it. She simply didn't have it in her. I didn't think he did either, but the letter explaining his decision was read along with the will, and it completely broke me. H and KM was hopping mad, threatening to sue. Father-in-law actually got his mental health assessed before making this change. I talked to my kids about redistributing the jewelry more equally, but all 4 kids, H and K, want to honor FIL's wishes. I just don't want M to get any worse than this. They're gone, but K and M are still alive. It cannot be a good situation at home. The kids are watching their parents. I feel like, as the oldest, it's on me to get us all to being a functional unit. K standing up to M has started to heal the anger H has felt ever since the cat. I just wonder if placating M would help the family overall. We're all we each have. Would I be the jerk if I didn't try until I succeed? To clear some things. 1. Yes, M knew about MIL's pet allergy. She got the cat about a week after the subject of the parents moving in was brought up. I thought it was a strange thing to do. We're all Indian American, and none of us grew up with pets. M and K have been married for almost 24 years. They got married right after graduating from college. They lived with our in-laws while M was in medical school. H and I got married 22 years ago. We were in a different state, but moved near his parents after residency. My wedding gift from my in-laws was them paying off my debt until that point and paying my tuition for the 3 years of medical school so I wouldn't have to borrow. I'm the only one who comes from a not wealthy family. Getting more in the will makes me uneasy because they already did so much for me. 2, my intention is not to placate M, but to save K from letting our community know about this. He already feels ashamed that he couldn't have his parents with him. I don't want it to get out that something was done expressly with the intention of not letting my in-laws move into their home. Please remember, until this incident, M was a very good daughter-in-law. My niece and nephew were both born in our in-laws' home and lived there until my niece was 7 and M completed his residency. She was like their daughter, too. Not to mention, as the first daughter-in-law, she was supposed to be given certain pieces, which I got, and I offered to give them to her, but H&M didn't let me. People won't know about the money. I've already set up in motion a plan to donate the amount to the clinic, where father-in-law volunteered after he retired, and wouldn't care because that's not something visible. But if I were to show up at an event wearing certain pieces of jewelry, or if M was to show up not wearing them, people would know. I don't want anyone to think that my parents-in-law were anything but loved and wanted by their entire family. Not to protect M, but to protect K because he was devastated by her getting the cat. I don't want it to ever come out that anything happened to keep them out of one of our homes. I don't want anything marring their memory. Of course, I will give my niece and my nephew at least some of what I was given, but there are pieces that they would have liked to have inherited as their right. It's not the same. No one is suffering here for lack of money or is likely to. Both the older kids are in BSMD programs, and the younger ones will likely follow a similar path, get a terminal degree in something. I'm sure all this sounds complicated. I guess I was hoping there were other Indian American families out there who would understand how we live, how important honoring our parents and grandparents is to us, who'd get the family structure. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You said both H and K wanted your in-laws to move in with either family, but M put an end to that the moment she got the cat. That is clearly why father-in-law changed the will. Stop worrying about this issue. It's M's own fault and she deserves a reduced portion. As for their children, if you're so concerned about it, you and your husband can leave them a nice amount in your own will to kind of make up for what you feel father-in-law robbed them of. Not necessarily the whole amount, but you can be somewhat more generous than you might ordinarily have, if that would assuage your conscience. Just a thought. Comment 2. You would be the jerk. You can ask and explain and then let it go. Trying to salvage your relationship with your sister-in-law by going against your husband, your brother-in-law, and your kids is going to ruin the other relationships. It's on the brother-in-law to calm and comfort his wife, not on you. The father-in-law went above and beyond to make sure the sister-in-law can't sue, so he was really serious about his wishes. Why go against his will? Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my previous post and for all your support. It's been a tough couple of weeks since the will reading, and I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening. After the will was read, things got pretty tense between K and M. M was still furious about the unequal distribution of the jewelry and inheritance, and she started lashing out at K, blaming him for not standing up for her and their kids. K tried to reason with her, explaining that it was father-in-law's decision and that he wanted to honor his wishes, but M wouldn't hear it. She accused K of always putting his family before her and their kids, and things just escalated from there. I tried to talk to M, offering to redistribute some of the jewelry to make things more equal, but she refused. She said it wasn't about the jewelry itself, but about the principle of the matter. She felt like she had been disrespected and treated unfairly by father-in-law, and she couldn't let that go. Things came to a head a few days later when M packed up her things and left, taking the kids with her. She said she needed some time to think and that she couldn't be around K right now. K was devastated. He tried to call and text her, but she wouldn't respond. He even went to her parents' house where she was staying, but they wouldn't let him in. I felt terrible for K and wanted to help, so I decided to reach out to M's parents to see if I could talk some sense into them. I thought that maybe if they understood the situation better, they could help convince M to come back home and work things out with K. But when I got there, I made a huge mistake. In my eagerness to defend K and explain the situation, I ended up revealing some details about the will that I shouldn't have. I mentioned the letter that father-in-law had written, explaining his decision to leave more to me and my kids. I thought it would help them understand why things were the way they were, but instead, it just made things worse. M's parents were furious. They couldn't believe that father-in-law had deliberately chosen to leave more to me and my kids, and they saw it as a huge insult to M and her family. They accused me of being greedy and manipulative, and they told me to leave and never come back. I was shocked and devastated. I had only been trying to help, but instead I had made things so much worse. I went home feeling guilty and ashamed, not knowing how to fix the mess I had created. Over the next few days, things only got worse. M's parents started spreading rumors about me and my family, telling everyone in our community that we were selfish and had manipulated father-in-law into leaving us more in the will. They even went so far as to suggest that we had somehow coerced him into changing the will after mother-in-law's death, which was completely untrue. Kay was beside himself. He couldn't believe that his own in-laws would turn against him like this, and he didn't know how to make things right. He tried to reach out to Em again, but she still wouldn't talk to him. As for me, I was racked with guilt. I knew that I had made a terrible mistake by revealing those details about the will, and I wished more than anything that I could take it back. I tried to apologize to Em's parents, but they wouldn't listen. They were too angry and hurt to see reason. In the end, Kay and Em's marriage fell apart. Em filed for divorce, and she and the kids moved out of the house permanently. Kay was heartbroken, but he knew there was nothing he could do. The damage had been done, and there was no going back. Looking back, I realize now that I should have stayed out of it. I should have let Kay and Em work things out on their own without trying to intervene, but I was just so worried about Kay and wanted to help however I could. I never meant to cause so much pain and destruction. I know that I can't change what happened, but I hope that someday Kay and Em can find a way to forgive each other and move forward, and I hope that I can find a way to forgive myself too. Thanks for listening, everyone. It helps to be able to share this with people who understand. My family mocks my career as a welder and hunting guide, but when I inherit the cabin, they turn green with envy, so I plan a family reunion to show them the true value of family unity. Throwaway account because my brother and I communicate on Reddit, and I can't risk anyone seeing this. Okay, for background, I, 24-year-old male, live a very different life than the majority of my family. I didn't graduate high school but got a GED and started working as a welder and hunting guide. The rest of my family is pretty successful. For instance, my father is a lawyer, and my mom used to be an RN. Brothers own companies, sister got married to a lawyer, etc. I'm glad my family found a lot of success, but they can be very shallow and often put me down for what I do for work. My mom will make comments like, "When are you going to school to get a real job?" or stuff like that. They didn't want to pay for welding school, so I worked at an auto shop to pay my own way through. They often go on vacations and cruises without me because I won't be able to appreciate the culture or food, and other BS like that. I love them, but I have been slowly pulling away from them over the last few years, since I can tell that we live different lives and they have no interest in sharing their lives with me. Now. My grandfather's brother Mike and I have always been pretty close. Mike and I used to go hunting when I was pretty young, and even though Mike was also working in law, he and I shared a love of the outdoors and nature. About a year ago, Mike was diagnosed with cancer and has quickly gone downhill in the last few months. I have taken a lot of time off of work to care for him since he is my oldest relative, and no one else wants to take care of a frail, sick old man for some callous reason. His wife died 15 years ago, and he doesn't have any children. He recently asked me if taking care of him was hurting me financially, and I told him that I was cutting back on hours at work, but I loved him more than any of my other family members, so it was my pleasure to take care of him. The next time I went to visit him, he revealed to me that he was having his will changed and would be willing his hunting cabin. It's not a cabin. It's a small single-family home with power and running water on 70-plus acres to me, along with about $100,000 to get it fixed up and start your life. He wants the rest of his estate to be liquefied and donated to different causes that he was passionate about. Mike is actively dying now. He asked to be taken out of hospice so he can die at home with his dog, who will also be coming with me when he passes away. In his own home, my family was talking about how much money Mike has, and how when he dies, they want to convert his hunting cabin into a summer vacation home, and how they were going to fund a big memorial trip to Europe on his dime, since we are his last remaining family and they expect the majority of his wealth to be broken up between us all. They do not know that everything is being donated and I am getting the house and some of his money. I know that when they find out about what Mike has so graciously done for me, they will rip me down and curse his name. I don't want to be around for the fallout. I plan to set aside some money for renovating the house for full-time use and start a small welding company someday. So would I be the a-hole if I cut them out of my life as soon as Mike is gone? Seeing this new greedy side of them has soured me a lot, and I don't know if I can even stand being around them anymore, even though I know that Mike always said that your family should be everything to you. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Family is important to Mike, and yet he cut everyone else in the family except you off. To me, that's acknowledgement that though he believed in the general idea of family being important, the rest of your family in particular wasn't worthy or deserving of any of his legacy. You're the one he chose, with good reason, not the idiot. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Using what he left you and building up your life is the best way to honor your uncle. People can be vultures when someone dies, and it's always satisfying when they face an empty field. Besides, since they're all so super successful and cultured, they shouldn't mind if the poor family gets a leg up. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my previous post. It's been a tense 2 weeks since I last updated, and I've got a lot to share with you all. First off, Mike passed away peacefully in his sleep a few days after I made my initial post. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that he was no longer suffering, but also realizing that I had lost one of the most important people in my life. His dog, Rusty, has been a great comfort to me during this difficult time. The day after Mike's passing, I met with his lawyer to discuss the will. It turns out that Mike had left me even more than I initially thought. Not only the hunting cabin and the $100,000, but also a significant portion of his remaining assets. I was stunned and incredibly grateful for his generosity. However, things took a turn when my family found out about the will. They were furious, accusing me of manipulating Mike and stealing what they believed to be their rightful inheritance. My brother even went so far as to threaten legal action, claiming that I had coerced Mike into changing his will. The situation escalated quickly, with my family members bombarding me with angry phone calls and messages. They demanded that I hand over the cabin and the money, insisting that they had more right to it than I did. I tried to reason with them, explaining that this was Mike's final wish and that I had no intention of giving up what he had left me. As the days went by, the tension only grew worse. I found myself constantly on edge, dreading every interaction with my family. It got to the point where I was seriously considering cutting them out of my life entirely, just to escape the constant harassment and negativity. But then, something unexpected happened. I received a letter from Mike's lawyer, along with a video recording that Mike had made before his death. In the video, Mike spoke directly to my family, explaining his decision to leave the cabin and money to me. He talked about how much he valued our relationship and how he wanted to ensure that I had the means to pursue my dreams. What really struck me, though, was the way Mike spoke about family. He reminded my parents and siblings that family is about love and support, not material possessions. He urged them to put aside their differences and come together, to remember the importance of the bonds we share. Watching that video was a turning point for me. I realized that cutting my family out of my life wasn't the answer. Mike had always believed in the power of family, and I knew that I needed to honor that belief, even in the face of conflict. So I reached out to my parents and siblings, inviting them to meet with me at Mike's cabin. It was a tense gathering with a lot of unresolved hurt and anger hanging in the air, but as we sat together, surrounded by the natural beauty that Mike had loved so much, something began to shift. We started to talk, really talk, for the first time in years. We shared memories of Mike and reflected on the lessons he had taught us. Slowly but surely, the walls between us began to crumble. It wasn't a perfect resolution, and there are still plenty of issues to work through. But that meeting at the cabin was a start, a chance to begin rebuilding the relationships that had been strained for so long. In the end, I decided not to cut my family out of my life. Instead, I'm choosing to focus on the positive, to cherish the connections we have and work towards strengthening them. It's what Mike would have wanted, and it's what I know in my heart is right. Thanks for sticking with me through this update. It's been a challenging time, but I'm grateful for the love and support of this community. Here's to new beginnings and the power of family. My daughter's birthday tour at the zoo got ruined by big cats and I made a scene. But I called to apologize and they gave us a private tour. So I planned the perfect day to show my family I changed. I, 37-year-old male, recently booked a private tour of the zoo for our family, including some behind-the-scenes areas for my daughter, 11-year-old female's birthday. It was just us and one other family during the behind-the-scenes tour. Things were going well, and we got to see lots of cool animals, and our daughter was happy. Then when we were about to get to the part where we could check out this behind-the-scenes area of the big cat exhibits, sort of a central indoor location where zookeepers could feed/house/check up on the lions, tigers, and other big cats. And from there were little paths for the cats to get to their various outdoor exhibits. The zookeeper guiding us apparently got a text on her phone. She checked it and then told us, "Okay, so I've been told it probably wouldn't be best to take you all in there right now. Apparently 3 of the cats have just, relieved themselves. 2 of them right up close to the interior walkway. And 1 sprayed a post near the entrance this afternoon, and it might not be until morning that we get a cat keeper in there to clean it up." This was in the late afternoon. Everyone else seemed to sort of nod along and agree with her, but I spoke up and said that's ridiculous. We came all this way and paid all this money. There's no way we should be passing up seeing the interior of the big cat care area because a couple of the cats had pooed. Just let us go in and look around, we'll be fine. The zookeeper sort of chuckled and said, "Oof, you have no idea how much you don't want me to do that. I don't even think I should open the door right now for us to peek in, because even out here it might start to get a bit unbearable," meaning in the exterior corridor. My wife was kind of nudging me to drop it and move on, but I could tell my daughter was a bit disappointed not to see in there. She was looking at me. I said, "Come on, the whole zoo smells like animals. Just let us go in." Someone else on the tour chimed in and sort of interrupted and said to the keeper, "If it's as bad as you say, I'll trust your judgment. Please don't make us smell that," and laughed, and most of the others nodded their approval. The keeper just kept the tour moving to the next place and told me, "If you really, really want to, I could stay half an hour late and go back in there towards the end with just your family. Maybe it would have started to dry a little by then, but I really, really don't recommend it." But we had a tight deadline to leave anyways, so weren't able to take her up on that. We got through the rest of the tour over the next hour, but I was sort of grumpy that we didn't get to go see the big cats behind the scenes because of something silly. My wife was a bit upset afterwards at me and said I behaved embarrassingly to her and our daughter. But I was trying to do what was best for us and her. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Ha! Imagine getting a private tour with a trained professional and telling them you know better than they do. And trust me, you throwing a temper tantrum in an attempt to do the right thing and make your daughter happy is doing no one any favors, least of all your daughter. Of course, you are the jerk, YTA. Comment 2. Yeah, you are the jerk, YTA. What makes you think you know better than the actual professional? How is arguing with and claiming you know better than the employee giving the tour doing the right thing? You just come across as ignorant and entitled. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a week since the zoo incident, and a lot has happened since then. After the tour ended, my wife and I had a heated discussion in the car. She told me that my behavior was not only embarrassing, but also disrespectful to the zookeeper and the other family. I tried to explain that I just wanted our daughter to have the best experience possible, but she wasn't having it. The tension between us was evident, and our daughter could sense it too. The next day, I decided to call the zoo and apologize for my behavior. I spoke with the manager and explained that I let my disappointment get the best of me. To my surprise, the manager was very understanding and even offered us a complimentary behind-the-scenes tour of the big cat area once it was cleaned up. I thanked him profusely and hung up the phone, feeling a bit better about the situation. However, things at home were still tense. My wife was giving me the cold shoulder, and our daughter seemed confused about why we were arguing. I knew I had to do something to make it right, so I decided to plan a special day out for just the 3 of us. On the day of our outing, I surprised them with tickets to a nearby amusement park. Our daughter's face lit up with excitement, and even my wife cracked a smile. We spent the day riding roller coasters, eating cotton candy, and just enjoying each other's company. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I could tell that my wife was starting to forgive me. As we were driving home that evening, my wife turned to me and said, "I appreciate you trying to make things right, but I need you to understand something. When you act like that in public, it reflects poorly on all of us." I know you were just trying to give our daughter the best experience possible, but sometimes we have to trust the experts and follow the rules." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that my actions at the zoo weren't just about me and my family, but about respecting the people around us and the rules in place. I apologized to my wife and promised to do better in the future. The next day, I received a call from the zoo manager. He told me that they had cleaned up the big cat area and that we were welcome to come back for a behind-the-scenes tour whenever we wanted. I thanked him again and told him that we would definitely take him up on the offer. When I told my wife and daughter about the offer, they were both excited. We decided to go back to the zoo that weekend, and this time I made sure to follow all the rules and listen to the zookeeper's instructions. As we entered the big cat area, the smell was still a bit strong, but it was manageable. The zookeeper showed us around and even let us watch as they fed the lions and tigers. Our daughter was absolutely thrilled, and I could tell that this experience meant the world to her. On the drive home, my wife turned to me and said, "I'm proud of you for how you handled things today. I know it wasn't easy to admit that you were wrong, but you did the right thing by apologizing and making things right." Her words meant more to me than she could ever know. I realized that being a good husband and father isn't just about trying to give my family the best experiences possible, but also about setting a good example and treating others with respect. Looking back on the past week, I can see how much I've grown as a person. I've learned the importance of listening to others, following the rules, and admitting when I'm wrong. I know that I still have a lot to learn, but I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned and the memories we've made as a family. Thanks for reading, everyone. Until next time. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.